we are going to be making a chocolate raspberry tort tonight. It's layered. It's got chocolate ganache. So it's going to be 3 layers of cake with in between 2 layers chocolate, and in between another layer a raspberry not jam, but like a raspberry cream that we're going to be making. And then topped with it as well. It should topped with the chocolate, so it's got like a layer of it, and then we'll have some raspberries probably to stick on top. We are going to be using a box mix tonight just because it's easier. We're putting in 8 ounces of sour cream first. Next up, we got 3 eggs that need to go in. Now we're going to be putting in about 3/4 cup of just water. Now we're going to be using some canola oil as opposed to olive or like veggie oil. This canola oil is going to be about 1/3 cup. Next we need to add in a little bit of vanilla extract, and this is only going to be about 1 teaspoon. Here's where we're going to add the box mix, which today we are using a Devil's Food Cake box mix. Get that nice chocolate. You're going to want to stir this nice and well. Make sure that there's no little clumps or anything like that. You want it to be kind of airy and just get your stir on really good. This is going to be about 1 cup of a semi-sweet mini chocolate chip as opposed to the normal size that you would have like in a chocolate chip cookie. These mini ones you might find more in like edible cookie dough from Ben & Jerry's. They're teeny tiny little ones. These are going to be kind of folded in as opposed to stirred in. Notice that we're just kind of pouring it lightly in as we go and just kind of folding over the batter to not lose any of the air that we may have gotten while we were stirring earlier. Making sure that they're mixed in well all over, but not being too stirred. Just gently folded. You're going to want to pre-prep 3 pans with a little bit of flour and spray on the bottom. Don't spray the sides so that you can help it not grow. I'm going to bake this at about 350, all 3 of them at the same time if you have room. This is going to be us making the chocolate ganache. I actually found that doing it this early was not the best time to do it. It's actually better to do the raspberries first, then do this a little bit closer to when you're ready, but it still works out. Pouring in about 1/2 cup of the heavy cream, and we need to bring this to a boil. So we're going to be sticking here. You do want to make sure that you kind of whisk it and make sure that it gently gets to it, not like a quick instant boil so that it doesn't stick to the bottom and burn. And while that's slowly working its way to a boil, you're going to take regular sized chocolate chips, and you want 1 cup of them, still semi-sweet, using that, pouring it in the bowl to get ready. You take the boiled whipping cream and you're going to be pouring it on top of the chocolate chips. Then we're going to start whisking them, and this is how we're going to melt it to make the chocolate ganache. Once you start getting the whip just a little bit going forward, you're going to take some butter here and toss it in as well. And this is about 1 tablespoon of butter. Once that's all mixed, you're going to want to cover it and put it into the fridge because you're going to want it to chill, but you don't want to ignore it. Every so often you want to make sure you go in and stir it because we don't want it to solidify. We want it to get to a spreadable, kind of creamy consistency as it cools. So this is the setup then for the raspberry cream, which is, since it needs to chill for about a half hour, it's honestly best to do this before you put in the cake mix. This is a fun way to do it. I didn't have a juice or anything like that, so you can put the raspberries into a strainer, because what we're going to be doing is using the strainer to smash them down. Just kind of press on them over and over and over again just to get all the juice and to make sure we don't get any of the berry seeds out of it. So this does take quite a while. I found a couple different ways. When I ended up turning the strainer that I had on its side and just kind of stirring it, it pushed it out much quicker. In a clean pot, you want to start staging by putting a little bit of sugar into it. This is going to mix with it, so it's about 3 tablespoons of sugar. You don't want to heat it just yet. You just want it to be getting started to be ready, because you will be mixing the raspberry juice with sugar and just a hint of cornstarch as well. We're going to be using about 4 tablespoons of cornstarch, which will help thicken things up, which is also why you don't really want to heat, because you don't have any liquid in here. So getting that pot nice and ready. 4 teaspoons cornstarch, 3 tablespoons sugar, and once we're ready with it, raspberry juice. Pour that in. And we're going to want to mix this and keep stirring as it cooks. You want to make sure while you're getting it to thicken. You don't want to stop stirring, especially with the cornstarch mixed in there, because you don't want it to be solid, you just want it to thicken as we get it to a low boil. When it's ready, you're going to pour it into a bowl, because what we're going to do is cover it, and we will be putting this into the fridge as well. It should chill for about half an hour. When I was making this, I didn't time my stuff right as I had when I was planning it, and then got all mixed around. So I'm actually going to be sticking mine in the freezer instead of just the fridge, to just try and get it to chill just a bit more. This is obviously risky because, like I said, we don't want it frozen, we just want it thickened. So your cake mix. Cakes you're going to want to be completely cool before we start assembling, so about 10 minutes cooling in pan, and then after that you want to pop them out and put them onto a wire rack to cool completely. So now you're going to want to getting ready to finish making the raspberries by using the last half cup of the whipping cream. It's easiest if you use a hand mixer with it, where you're going to use this to basically turn the whipping cream into a much thicker mixture where it's closer to whipped cream. You pretty much do want it to be whipped cream. Set it aside while you start putting things together. I used just a little dollop of the chocolate ganache, sticking it on the bottom to help the cake not slide so much. And then you're going to want to put your first layer, and then the chocolate goes on the top of the cake. You want to make sure it's spread all even and all around. This one, if you can, you want it to be a little thick. I didn't have as much as I thought I would. Stick your next layer on. I do recommend that if your cakes bubble a little in the center, that you will want to slice them to flatten them out. It'll make this much better. I did not. I should have, but I did not. Then you're going to want to get your raspberry mix and pour it in with the whipped cream. Mine did not whip enough. I kept thinking it was, but I was rushed and didn't whip it enough. You really need it to be forming peaks and not liquid. It was also super hot, so it was melting quicker, melting as well. But hey, you want to make sure you get all of that raspberry juice into it. And then I was trying to do a full stir so that you want to get it all mixed together, because if you stir it too much after you've tried to whip it, you might flatten it out. But then I switched back to a whisk to try and pop it up again. And try to get it to be a little bit more solid, because you want it to be almost like a whipped cream more so, to hold its shape. Mine was definitely much more liquid. It was better than it was, but not as good as it could have been. So mine was definitely much more liquid than I wanted. Still tasted great though. And then you're going to add your third and final bit of cake and top it all off with what's left of your chocolate ganache. You don't need to fill in the sides with this. You just need to cover all the layers. And if you have some extra raspberries or so, you could decorate on the top. And that's the cake. Look at that slice where you've got a layer of that chocolate and a layer of raspberry. And this tasted so amazing. It had almost a sponge cake density for the actual torts, as well as the raspberry cream. It may have been a bit more liquid than I wanted, but wasn't too sweet. It blended in great with the chocolate and with it. It all came together fantastically. This was probably the first time I've ever had like a raspberry cake and just loved it. Loved everything of it. I highly recommend it. If you do it right, it'll be an airy concoction in the center, but all of it just blended together perfectly.